choice. I know we take the choice. We make the decision whether we will forgive or not, but biblically, it's not yours to decide whether or not you will or not. It's a command. We don't have the biblical right. I won't get into all of it, but we're basically trying to play God when we do that. When we decide who is and isn't deserving of forgiveness. We ought not to do that. That's one of those things that's easy to say and hard to live. It's easy to say it from the pulpit, but then when everybody has to go put it in practice and live it, it can be hard. And I understand that. From personal experience, I don't think there's a single one of us in here who hasn't been hurt by somebody or something, but we have to keep in mind that God has a bigger plan, and I'll remind you that this is the passage in which he talks about if we had faith that we could say to the tree, to the sycamore tree, be thou plucked up by the roots and cast into the sea. We talked about how the sea has the ability to fundamentally change that tree and can destroy trees like that and change them from one state to another. And I won't get back into all that for the sake of time. But I want to look at Genesis chapter 41. I thought about going through and trying to look at all the different things in Joseph's life where you can see the hand of God preparing him for something greater than himself, something beyond himself. And it started off with a terrible situation with his brothers. But I think maybe we'll come back and look at those at a later time. I was interested in the fact the last time it's mentioned about a generation of people is mentioned in Genesis, at least, it's mentioned with Joseph. But with Joseph's family, but Joseph is not that firstborn. And it totally breaks the order. In fact, it really doesn't quite get into the generation so much there. But I think in some ways it's pointing out the condition of that family. And there's no perfect family. There's no perfect family. My daughter made a statement, as most kids do, when they don't have a great understanding of reality of, this family's like this family's like that. I said, you have no idea what those families are like. You don't know what they're like behind closed doors. You don't know if they have arguing. You don't know if what you see, the bickering on the outside, you don't know, it might be the most loving family in there. You just don't know, but that's not our business to know. We're to pray for them. I don't think our home's better than anybody else's. The only good thing about our home is Christ. That's the only thing that'll make it what it ought to be. Genesis chapter 41, let's look at verse 49. It says, "And Joseph gathered corn as the sand of the sea, very much until he left numbering, for it was without number. And unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of famine came." Which, to me, that's interesting here. So Joseph he's doing what God has designed for his life to begin with. He's fulfilling it. He's living by faith. He's carrying out the dreams that God had given him. And at the point of living by faith, all of a sudden he starts to gather in all the corn to the point that it can't be numbered. It says the sands of the sea, being the starting point of that sea. And I could get into the whole faith aspect of that there, but I'm not going to right now. But it's that point before the famine that he has kids. And all of a sudden, now Joseph has to start paying closer attention to God, because you could say it this way, he has more skin in the game. He has a family to think about. A good tool for overlooking offenses and learning to forgive is quit thinking just about yourself and think about those people, those that go beyond you. Think about the bigger circle of your influence. Think about your kids. Undoubtedly, when he had kids, it changed him. I'm interested in how many times you see in the Bible when somebody has a kid, it fundamentally changes their walk with God. They don't walk the same. Some started walking with God after the birth of a child. And we have to get to a place where we focus on God's plan for our life, and that we walk by faith. So Joseph, I see that Joseph it says in verse 50, and unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of famine came, which Asenath, the daughter of Potiphera, priest of On, bare unto him. But this is where I'm wanting to get to. Sorry for the hesitation there. My mind's focused on the next verse, probably where I should have started. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for God, said he, hath made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. He didn't actually forget his father's house, because he remembers his father's house. He remembered to even say, my father's house. Well, if he had forgotten it, he wouldn't remember to say that. What he's talking about is what we talked about with the forgiveness before, where it removes that offense as the focal point of your life. Where that's what you dwell on all the time. And at the point he began to start living by faith more purposefully, we see that all of a sudden, by the way, if you read on further, you'll see that he had forgotten his dream. He had forgotten the dream. Now, I think he still remembered it some. I'm not saying that he forgot it and never thought about it again, but it does say that he remembered his dream. It became the point where he wasn't fixated on the dreams that God had given him anymore, and he was fixated on the hurt. He wasn't fixated on serving God and being a servant of God to the people and going forth for the cause of God. But he was fixated, and everything about his day was focused on him. That's how bitterness sets in. That's how pity sets in. And that's how depression sets in. And that's how the hurt just lingers, and it's all you think about. From the moment you lay down to the moment and the minute you wake up, you're thinking about the same thing. In fact, some even dream about it in between. But no more is he doing that. Now, at this point, is where things start to change, and Joseph, the blessings of God start to appear in his life as he starts fulfilling the call of God in his life. He's refocused on God. Others seen it. I think Joseph was doing some of it by faith and some by duty, maybe. But it was at a point where Joseph was serving God in a way in which others could see God in him. Just before that, it says in verse 38, and Pharaoh said unto his servants, can we find such a one as this, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? Looking for somebody to take charge of that role that Joseph talked to him about, of having somebody to set him up in the land, be over all the land, and to be over the corn that would be brought in, as Joseph reminded him of his of what his dreams were. By the way, there's an interesting thing in that, and the fact that he told him this dream is established of God. It's the 2 dreams are one, and it's established of God. And Pharaoh describes the man of being someone with discretion. The whole purpose, I believe, of that is Pharaohs thought they were God. Their people thought they were God. And here he was discreet enough to come in and say, listen, this is established of God. He didn't tell him, Pharaoh, you're not God. Even though he knew he wasn't, and he knew Pharaoh knew he wasn't. He reminded him, hey, there's somebody giving you this dream. It's somebody beyond you. He starts to glorify God. He starts to live for God, and all of a sudden, others can see it in him. And I think one of the greatest things that God allowed me to do in some of the problems I've had was just focus on him. And then others come along, and then they start to listen to you more about the topic, and you're able to start being used of God to be a healing agent in that problem, and not just another bitter point in that problem. Just stay at serving God. Stay faithful. Live as if Christ were your king, and as if you wanted to glorify him, you want to accomplish what he had for you in your life. And the result is others will see it, and God will be able to use you, and the healing can start to go forward from that point. I see that in Joseph's life. His brothers, I believe his brothers had got to a point where they weren't fixated on the problems of the family anymore either. It kind of amazes me how they were so angered over bowing down to him, over the reference of them bowing down to him in a dream. If that was the case and I was willing to kill my brother over that, I probably would never want to bow down to anybody, and I surely wouldn't want to bow down if all my other brothers were bowing down. And if I noticed all my other brothers bowing down, I'd be looking to see who the man was that we were all bowing to. And I think I probably would have focused on my brother enough, or on the man that we were bowing down to enough, that I might have said, there's something kind of odd about him. He kind of looks like us. And maybe his hair's different now. He's a little taller, a little broader shouldered. But I'm wondering, they hadn't even thought of that. But Joseph was able to get himself into a position where his heart was changed by faith through serving God. That when he saw his brothers, it wasn't the hate. I understand he put them through some trials and some testings, but Joseph had to go out because he was crying, because he had a love for his brothers again. Love is a powerful weapon. It is, I believe, a weapon that God has given us to overcome all the hurts and to help heal families. Joseph's greatest thing was that he was living by faith, and God gave him something once he started living by faith to help him not fixate on that anymore. The hurt won't stay forever. If you start serving God, he will become that thing that you fixate on. When he becomes that thing you're fixated on, you can think clearly from there forward, and you can go forward and start serving him and start seeing healing of your family. My time is gone. I'm going to stop there because I won't be able to get into the rest of what I've even got written down, but I'll say this. Just get along with God. Find out what God wants you to do. If you have hurt, if you have problems between you and family or others or whatever, and just get out there and continue to serve God. Your mind will be clear. You'll see things the way they truly are. You won't have the arguments in your mind that are not even there. You won't be arguing with people that you're not even talking to and all that kind of garbage. You'll be focused on the right things, and then you'll actually be able to be a help and a positive influence to seeing change in that portion of your life, or